Alright, we're going to be going through part 1 of your study guide. I'm going to be doing these on the blank screen. Okay, so number 1, this is the situation where you have an endpoint and a midpoint and you're looking for the other endpoint. So doing this is where I have to split the midpoint formula into two sections to find my x number and my y number. So finding the x number, I'm going to put what I know, okay, into the x part of the slope formula. Normally, it looks like this, x of 1 plus x of 2. But I know one of my x's, all right? So I'm going to put my first x of my endpoint, which is -6, plus I don't know the other one, over 2, coming from the formula, equal to the x part of my midpoint, which is 0. Now let's do some algebra. Now I'm going to multiply both sides by 2 to get rid of the 2 in the denominator. That gives me -6 plus x equals 0. Add 6 to both sides. That leaves me with x equals 6. Coming over to the y part. Remember, normally the midpoint formula looks like y sub 1 plus y sub 2 over 2 equal to the y value of my midpoint, which in number 1 is -2. Well, I know one of my y values. The y value on the endpoint that I know is -2 plus y, because I don't know the other one, over 2. Multiply both sides by 2 to get rid of that denominator. And I wind up with -2 plus y equal -4. Add 2 to both sides. I wind up with y equal -2. So my answer on number 1 is 6, -2. And remember that that is the end point, not the midpoint. Number 2. Same situation. My x number, my y number. Splitting apart my midpoint formula, the x value of my endpoint is -7 plus x over 2 equal to -1, which is the x value of my midpoint. Multiply both sides by 2. You wind up with -7 plus x equals -2. Add 7 to both sides. X equals 5. Coming over to do the y value. I know the y value from the endpoint that I know is 8 plus y over 2 equal to the y value of my midpoint is -7. Multiply both sides by 2 to get rid of that 2 in the denominator. Bring down 8 plus y equal -14. From here, I'm going to subtract 8 from both sides. And I wind up with y equal -22. So the final answer on number 2, which is the end point, not the midpoint, is -5, -22. All right, number 3. Looking at number 3, that's a straight midpoint problem. So the midpoint, starting out with my formula, x of 1 plus x of 2 over 2, y sub 1 plus y sub 2 over 2. Plug in everything I know. So my two endpoint x's are -6 plus 8. Over here, my two y values from both my endpoints are 0 plus -2. Do some simplifying, and you wind up having the answer being 1, -1. Number 4. Number 4 is a straight distance problem. Starting out with the formula, y sub 2 minus y sub 1 squared plus x sub 2 minus x sub 1 squared. Now, some of you I've saw like to put the x sub 2 minus x sub 1 first squared. That's okay, all right, as long as you make sure you label off your ordered pairs. So doing this, the ordered pairs I have in number 4 are -1, 4, and then -2, 7. And I want to know the distance between those 2 points. So there's my x of 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2. Plugging in what I have, square root, my y sub 2 value is 7, minus my y sub 1 is 4 squared, plus my x sub 2 value is negative 2, minus my x sub 1 value is negative 1. Doing some simplifying, I wind up with 7 minus 4 is 3 squared, plus negative 2 minus negative 1 winds up being negative 2 plus 1 squared. Keep going. 3 squared is 9, plus negative 2 plus 1 is negative 1. If you square negative 1, you end up with positive 1. Equal to square root 10, and that's where I wanted you to stop on that problem. Number 5, the next one on that one is A. All right, so number 5 is A. Remember, collinear means points on the same line. Number 6. Number 6, I kind of wrote it up like this. The measure of angle D plus the measure of angle E is supplementary, so it's 180. And the measure of angle F plus the measure of angle E is complementary, so that's equal 90. Doing this out, okay, I asked you yesterday, what was the difference? Well, what's the difference in these two situations? What links D and F together? The answer is 90 degrees. That's the difference in the two. And I still want you to think about why that is. Maybe it's obvious from here, maybe it's not. Okay. If I were to take this whole bottom and subtract it, the e's would go away, leaving me with the measure of angle D equal 180 and the measure of angle F equaling 90. Maybe now you see it. One of those tricky ones. All right. Number 7, I was much less tricky. I give you two angles, and I tell you they're complementary. Well, that means if I added them up, they're going to equal 90. Okay, so one angle I give you is 14x, plus the other angle I gave you was 7x minus 2 degrees, and that's all equal to 90. Algebra time, here we go. 14 plus 7 is going to give me 22x minus 2 equal 90. Add 2 to both sides. I wind up with 22x equal 92. Divide both sides by 14 plus 7 is 21. Thank you. Divide both sides by 21, and x equals 92 over 21. I saw some of you change it to a decimal. Please don't do that. Leave it the way it is. I don't even want any mixed numbers. Number 8. Here we go. Okay, so I've already kind of set up the problem. I told you there's a big angle called FCH. There's an angle bisector given by this ray CD, which means it slices up that big angle into two. There's also another angle bisector given by CG, so it slices that angle up into two congruent pieces. You have to remember what a bisector does. I tell you that angle FCG is 38 degrees, and the question I'm asking on this problem is what is the measure of angle FCD? Well, let's see. If this is 38 degrees right here, so is this one. So now all I have to do to get to my answer is do 38 plus 38, and I wind up that the measure of angle FCD is 76 degrees. Number 9. Number 9, I've already done the problem, or I'm sorry, I've already made the picture for number 9, and the only thing I give you is that that's 54 degrees. Well, let's do some figuring here. Let's look at it this way. I tell you in the problem that AI is perpendicular to KL. So that means this angle right here is 90. So if I'm thinking about this, I think I could figure out what that angle is. All I need to do is do 90 minus 54, and I wind up with 36 degrees right here. Now let's look at it from a different angle. I'm going to go back to the fact that AF is perpendicular to DE, so I know that this makes a 90-degree angle. Well, if I know that this is 36, I think I can figure out this whole big angle. Doing 90 minus 36, I'm back to 54 degrees. So this whole big angle up here is 54 degrees. Well, it's been cut by an angle bisector, which means I need to slice that 54 in half, so that's 27 and 27. And the problem was looking for that angle right there. So the answer to the measure of angle FAZ is 27 degrees. Number 10, we discussed this in class. That one is a line. Remember, a locus of points is a gathering of points between two others, same distance, that ends up making a line.